obtaining the ticket. God wants us to know now, sure, the Bible is emphatic about this, but why has it not happened already to all Christians? You are probably a new convert, or at least outside the door to your purpose, knocking away. Like the Bible characters I mentioned, you are also at the starting gate of the purpose race. So why haven't you been shown what God created you to accomplish? Years ago, when I was just starting my spiritual journey, as young of a Christian as one could be, I was in an Arizona jail. For the first time in my life, I felt the unmistakable, lasting presence of God. Locked in a small cell for hours and hours every day, I pored over the scriptures like any other fire-filled new believer, and I felt the resulting joy from my efforts to grow closer to God. There was no mistaking that the Spirit was doing a work inside me, even in jail, awaiting serious criminal disposition. Like every new believer on fire for the Lord, I wanted nothing more in those joyous mountaintop moments to live my life fully for God. I didn't care what the work entailed. I wanted to make penance with God for the wrongs I had done. As though I actually could make the good works of my life outweigh the bad, I had thought. Many times in that cramped concrete box I prayed for revelation about my divine purpose. Many times I made huge promises for even the vaguest hint, as long as I got something. At times I even fasted, no food or water for 24 hours, sometimes longer, to get an answer. And guess what? After more than a month of praying and asking, do you want to know what the Lord told me? After all that prayer and fasting, absolutely nothing. Not one word about my purpose. It wouldn't be until another 4 or 5 months later, after I pled guilty to a string of commercial burglaries and was sentenced to 10 years in prison, that I finally received a response. The interesting thing was that when I finally learned my purpose, I was no longer asking God about it. One weekday night, He just told me, and shortly afterward, He confirmed the revelation through an outside source. God will always confirm His word, I've learned. Oftentimes, again and again and again. He just did so a few days ago. And it has been years since the initial purpose revelation. So here are the questions I had back then, once God revealed His plans for my life. Why now, all of a sudden? Why not tell me months earlier in jail when I was praying and almost begging to know? What changed? Was it something I did or said? Let's look at the Bible for the answer. Earlier I spoke of young David and how the Lord chose him through the prophet Samuel to be the second king of Israel. Jesse, David's father, had erroneously left David outside to tend the sheep while Samuel looked over the 7 older sons for a suitable king. Here is what the Lord told Samuel as Samuel examined Eliab, the oldest son, who seemed capable and physically impressive, who Samuel thought for sure must be whom God had chosen. But the Lord said to Samuel, "Do not look at his appearance or at his physical stature, because I have rejected him. For the Lord does not see as man sees, for man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart." 1 Samuel 16:7. Eliab was rejected because his heart was not in the right place, as was the same for every other son except for David. God looks at the heart. Yes, the heart can be deceptive and full of sinful passions, but the heart also encases the true nature of the person, good or bad, mature or immature, honest or dishonest. Just to be clear, your age, race, or social status has zero bearing on you having a purpose. The Bible demonstrates this over and over. Young or old, God can use you. Brown, black, or white, God can use you. Rich or poor, God can use you. Physically or mentally handicapped, God can use you. Man or woman, God can use you. If while living your old worldly life you were deceived and had gender transitional surgery, but now live your life for Christ, God can use you. Your physical makeup has zero bearing on God's power in your life. In fact, the more the world underestimates you, the more they discount your worth or ability, the more God's power can shine through you. 2 Corinthians 12:9. If you were a criminal before coming to Christ, God can use you. I'm a 7-time felon who spent more than 10 years in prison, with nearly another year left to go, and God is using me to reach you. If this purpose truth applies to me, then it does for you too. Our past mistakes don't determine our divine future. In fact, God excels at turning our past shortcomings into our future strengths. Just look at Moses, the murderer. Just look at David, the adulterer and murderer. Like with the oldest son, Eliab, God does not look at our physical makeup or economic status or pedigree when determining our future. He loves us all the same. He has an enormous plan for all of us.